One man in a hoodie just did more journalism in a single afternoon than every billion-dollar network combined. His footage has now been viewed over 110 million times. While independent reporters kept digging, the legacy media sat frozen in silence. Tonight, the establishment is scrambling to control a narrative they can no longer contain. See, this is not just about the fraud anymore. This is a full-blown information war, and the old gatekeepers are losing. Now, here's what's really happening. Nick Shirley's viral footage did not just expose fraud. It exposed the total failure of institutional journalism. Lawmakers are now asking the obvious questions. If one guy with a camera can uncover this in a day, where have the state investigators been for 12 years? Where's the local media been? The answer is uncomfortable. They were silent. And that silence is now deafening. Governor Tim Walz's office issued a statement pushing back, claiming he has worked for years to crack down on fraud. But the critics aren't buying it. Meanwhile, an MSNBC analyst called the investigation scapegoating and politicization. 91% of those charged are of Somali descent. That's not targeting, that's just simply following the evidence. You see, the establishment, though, wants you to look the other way. They want you to forget. But 110 million views says America is watching. So as the story breaks in real time, here's the truth. When systems fail and institutions prove corrupt, self-reliance is your only option. My Patriot Supply is running their buy one, gift two Christmas special right now. Buy one emergency food kit, get two free. A 4-week supply for you, plus 2 one-week kits as gifts. When the government fails, your family still needs to eat. So get prepared on your own terms. Head to preparewithgary.com. The holiday deal will not last into the new year. You give New Year's gifts? This could be one of them. Preparewithgary.com. Okay, folks, the time is breaking, and it's breaking in real time. Ryan, fix the Zoom. ICE agents just made arrests at the largest Somali mall in Minnesota. Federal raids are underway. Something else is happening that should concern everyone. Ilhan Omar's husband, Tim Minette, runs a venture capital firm called Rose Lake Capital. Reports indicate the firm's website just scrubbed the names and biographies of 9 officers and advisors, including several with ties to the Obama administration. The firm allegedly went from $0 to $60 billion in assets in about a year. So why are they scrubbing their site now? What are they hiding? My friends, the story is developing by the hour. Now, legacy media, they have been completely outdone and blindsided and exposed. Legacy media silent, citizen journalists are winning. Real journalism is back. Former high school prank YouTuber Nick Shirley just dropped a masterclass exposing billions in Minnesota Somali welfare fraud, empty daycares. One can't even spell learning, raking in millions while Tim Walz looks away. This is 24 hours ago. Keith Ellison did not rise by accident. His political career was built through an alliance of Islamic organizations, Somali power networks, and far-left revolutionary groups. Many of these groups have been named in terrorism financing investigations or openly aligned with Muslim Brotherhood or Marxist movements. Ellison has openly credited these communities for his electoral victories. He's also spent decades acting as their legal shield, attacking law enforcement, undermining counter-terror scrutiny, and recasting investigations into Islamist activity as Islamophobia. Now Minnesota is ground zero for one of the largest taxpayer fraud scandals in American history, with schemes operating through the same ideological and communal ecosystems that mobilize votes, money, and political pressure. Are you tracking with me here? Are you following the money? That is ideological capture. When power is built on Islamic grievance, politics, and Marxist institutional subversion, fraud is not an aberration, it is a feature. Prosecute the fraud and you indict the coalition. Protect the coalition, you bury the crime. Minnesota didn't lose accountability by accident. It was engineered. Keith Ellison's record, Islamic and communist scandals and alliances. Islamic network protection. Ellison has repeatedly defended CARE, despite it being named an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation Hamas financing trial. Muslim American Society, the MAS, paid for Ellison's Mecca pilgrimage. They've been identified by federal prosecutors as a Muslim Brotherhood front. Opposition to terror designations. Ellison opposed scrutiny and designation of Islamist groups, consistently framing enforcement as discrimination. Holy Land Foundation orbit. Ellison maintained close relations with individuals and organizations tied to the largest terrorism financing case in U.S. history. Communist and revolutionary alliances. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on of the connections. Let's take a look.
Congressman Ellison.
Have you seen any evidence of deep penetration by the Muslim Brotherhood into the security apparatus of the United States?
No, it's not true. It doesn't exist. It's a phantom.
Minnesota Congressman Keith Ellison is a perfect example of the Muslim Marxist alliance. In his student radical days, Keith Ellison worked with both pro-Chinese communists and the Nation of Islam. Congressman Ellison has held several fundraisers in the home of Minnesota Communist Party leader Erwin Marquette. He was elected with the help of Communist Party phone bankers. He has also written for the Communist Party website.
Representative Keith Ellison, representative from Minnesota, has very close ties to various known organizations within the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States. For instance, CARE. For instance, the Muslim American Society, or MAS, which a few years ago paid for his Hajj trip, his pilgrimage trip to Mecca.
He is absolutely protecting these organizations. You see him working with ISNA, you see him working with Muslim Public Affairs Council, Muslim American Society, Muslim Student Associations, all Muslim Brotherhood Hamas fronts in the United States and many others. And you see him not only protecting them, advocating for them through both use of his seat in Congress, as well as pushing for agendas and legislation that would...
So what connection do they have to the fraud? If Ellison is sitting at the top of the pyramid, or close to the top, how much is he complicit in supporting and helping look the other way to fund these organizations? Here's Mike Lindell.
Now they have infiltrated every single one of these government Medicare or welfare services, and now they even have one where they're giving cars. It's non-medical emergency welfare, where you bring older people to the dentist, say, and they're getting all these cars. There's nobody in them, just like there's no kids in these daycare. And it's coming out today. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maine. This is opening, I think, states' eyes all around the country. But the New York Post came out the other day, everybody, on December 21st. $9 billion in Minnesota. That's half of the federal money given to Minnesota over the last, I think it's 6 years. And it's more or real close to the whole economy of Somalia. All this money being sent out. They're buying housing around Minneapolis. They're buying these houses. Nobody in them. They're getting paid for that with these high-priced cars out there. Steve, it's absolutely disgusting. And then we have our governor that is just... He's going, we got to get rid of the guns. We got to get rid of the guns. He's totally deflecting. The Minnesota media, everybody, this is what's really disgusting. The media in Minnesota is basically like a big cover-up. It's like you would go there and you think all is well, all is well. They have infiltrated every single
layer. Minnesota House Speaker Lisa DeMuth calls on Governor Walz to release the records on fraud that his administration is withholding and conduct a full review of all state money sent to NGOs.
Of the House Republicans. Last session, as you remember, House Republicans fought to pass the Office of Inspector General, which was passed with overwhelming support by the Senate It has support of the House Republican caucus, but was blocked every time by House Democrats. So given the intense interest, we're calling on the Walz administration to take the following steps. We have 6 steps that we would like to see the Walz administration take. The first would be to release the documents related to fraud that have been requested by the media and the Fraud Committee, as well as other legislators. As a point of note, the Star Tribune reported many of the data requests related to potential fraud have not been released by the Walz administration, both to the media or to legislators. Secondly, we would like the Walz administration to release any available records related to inspections of sites identified in the viral video. Third, we would like the Walz administration to redirect available resources to unannounced in-person site visits. Next, we would like the Walz administration to conduct a full review of money directed to NGOs by state agencies. That's as basic as confirming the IRS status, cross-checking for connections or connections to the indicted or suspected fraudsters, and more. Next, we would like the Walz administration to consider stopping payments in the other 13 high-risk programs. And finally, Governor Walz should also ask Attorney General Ellison to withdraw his lawsuit against the feds that is seeking to stop the redetermination process being pushed for by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It really begs the question of why is Attorney General Ellison filing lawsuits against the feds instead of working with them to root out fraud. Last session, as you remember, House Republicans fought to pass.
Oh, man. Minnesota's licensing lookup page for childcare is down. Uh-oh. Nick Shirley has sparked a movement of fed-up citizens seeking accountability for rampant Somali fraud. Website down. Unprecedented high volume of traffic causing service disruptions. Because everyone's checking on the licenses for these fraudsters. The dam is breaking. It's just been exposed that Minnesota AG Keith Ellison's son has been collecting $110,000 salary and $57,000 in living expenses from the Minnesota City Council while attending Harvard. Man, you can't make this stuff up. This is the craziest thing ever. Tim Walz and local media are being eviscerated after Nick Shirley's Minnesota fraud scandal footage hits 110 million views.
Citizen journalists going door to door in Minnesota to these so-called child care centers saying, hello, are there any children here at all? Can we see one child? And the answer over and over again, there's the video right there, Nick Shirley. And he did yeoman's work here, asking very basic questions. And my question in response to this video, you can see it on X, it's a long expose. Yeah. If there are any children, they are nowhere to be seen. And if this guy can do this kind of work, where are the state investigators? Where is the local media in Minneapolis or in the state of Minnesota? And it's such a bad look. And for the governor to say, oh, well, we're very strongly looking into this, and I'm going to have an outside auditor. We already know that billions have been stolen, and all he can do is downplay, and occasionally race bait as well. It's all he's got.
Voters don't like.
Citizen journalists going door to door in Minnesota to these so-called child care centers saying, hello, are there any children here at all? Can we see one child?
Local media have been totally silent. It's because they're all part of it. Fake news analyst Mara Gay on the Trump administration investigating Somali fraud in Minnesota. This is what happens when you weaponize and politicize federal agencies. The people are being scapegoated. However, 91% of the fraud perpetrators charged so far are of Somali descent. You see how they're deflecting? This is damage control.
The American people are right. The question is, why is this a priority in a different kind of way? The politicization of the DOJ and the FBI is undeniable. So whether they are reliable narrators is the big question. And this is what happens when you weaponize and politicize federal agencies that are not meant to be, politicized. And I think the American people are right to ask the question, well, can we trust you? And that's a sad thing to say as an American. Let's recall, too, that there's also other scandals in other states. For example, the Mississippi welfare scandal. And this is not
deflection. Look over here. Look over there. Don't look over here.
Unique to politics. Americans know that. But of course, the other factor here is that because it looks like the Somali population in Minnesota, the Somali immigrant population may have been involved in some way, those people are being scapegoated, and that community is being scapegoated in a way that certainly serves the far right. And so that's also something to keep an eye on, and that's inappropriate. Absolutely.
That's inappropriate. So it's not inappropriate to steal $6 billion? That's not inappropriate? CBS is done. PBS is done. CNN is done. ABC is done. MSNBC is done. 60 Minutes done. New York Times done. Washington Post, Associated Press, thanks to Elon Musk buying X. Independent journalism with a hoodie exposed millions in fraud. I stand with Nick Shirley, and I stand with my nomination for the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Medal of Honor for Nick Shirley. Elon Musk, you are the media now. Elon Musk buys X. Citizen journalists such as Nick Shirley cover stories bigger than anything the billion-dollar mainstream media would ever touch. Nick Shirley's Minnesota Somali Quality Leering Center fraud. Front page news everywhere. It's not going away. Senators and congresswomen are now launching major investigations, and Nick says it better results in arrests.
Billion child care centers in Minneapolis. And the independent journalist who published that video, which now has over 100 million views, tells Fox News the scam is extensive.
I've known about the fraud taking place for a long time. Minnesotans have been telling me for a long time about the Somali fraud that is taking place. And that's just the tip. When people say it's the tip of the iceberg, it really is, because there's billions of fraud inside the state of Minnesota right now.
And Garrett Tenney is covering this story from our Midwest Bureau. Garrett, good morning to you.
Yeah, Bill, good morning. This is just the latest example of the kind of widespread fraud that whistleblowers say has been taking place in Minnesota for years. And elected officials from towns around the state all the way to Capitol Hill are demanding investigations now into child care centers like this one. Quality Learning Center in Minneapolis. You can see this child care center that has received millions of dollars in federal tax money over the past 6 years can't even spell learning right on its sign. And since May 22, this business has been investigated at least 13 times for more than 50 different violations by the Department of Human Services in Minnesota. The business is licensed for 99 kids, but when independent reporter Nick Shirley went by this month, the place appeared completely empty.
There's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. And if you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed. There's no windows, no nothing. And like I said, they literally spelt the word wrong on their sign. This is open and blatant fraud taking place here inside of Minnesota.
Shirley went to multiple child care centers and said he found similar setups where businesses that have received piles of taxpayer dollars were either closed or he couldn't see any children present. In response to that video that's now gone viral, Vice President J.D. Vance posted on X, "What's happening in Minnesota is a microcosm of the immigration fraud in our system. Politicians like it because they get power. Welfare cheats like it because they get rich. But it's a zero-sum game, and they are stealing both money and political power from Minnesotans." Senator Ron Johnson says this is now going to be a primary focus for congressional investigators.
These agency heads who funnel the federal money to the state agencies, they have to demand that the state agencies are transparent. And unfortunately, particularly in Democrat-controlled states, they're not. They're refusing to turn over those records. I've got subpoena power. I will use that subpoena power to obtain these records because we have to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is under fire for all of this happening under his watch, but he says he's now taking steps to investigate this fraud further. He claims it's something they've already been looking into and that they are now setting up guardrails to keep it from happening again.
We got guardrails now, guys. Don't you worry about a thing. We got it under control now. Wait, but what about the $6 billion that's missing? Someone care to find it? Yeah, exactly. ICE agents making arrests. The largest Somali mall in Minnesota. Yeah, send them back. If they're not here legally, what are they doing here? Wall Street Apes, the fact that no mainstream media is covering the Minnesota fraud taking place is proof we need to pass the Charlie Kirk Act. Senator Mike Lee introduced the Charlie Kirk Act, which would ban taxpayer-funded government propaganda by restoring the Smith-Month Acts. I'm not sure I'm agree with that, personally. Somali fraud ring is infuriating immigrants. Immigrants throwing our generosity back in our faces by stealing from us, but it's also a microcosm of a much bigger scam the Democrats have been running for decades, using mass migration to fleece the American working class and enrich themselves.
Yeah, that refuse. So I'm just going to be real with you. Forgive me, but I just find this story so utterly infuriating. Think of all of the different ways that the American taxpayer was betrayed here by the Democrats who funneled billions of dollars to fake businesses and never once checked up to make sure they were legitimate, by the media that refused to cover it, by the immigrants themselves who were gifted by the generosity of the American people with the greatest privilege on earth, American citizenship, and then turned around and stole from us as thanks. It's so disgusting, but I think this is also a microcosm of a much bigger scam that the Democrats have been running for decades now, to where they welcomed in millions and millions of immigrants, both legal and illegal, who drove down the wages in America, especially for working class Americans, and drove up the cost of things like housing and healthcare and an education, the hallmarks of the American dream, making that totally out of reach for working class Americans. And then if those working class Americans had the temerity to object to their own disinheritance, rich Democrats would go on cable news and call them racists. It's so disgusting. The whole woke vocabulary was developed as a smokescreen for the mass fleecing of the American working class. And I think that is just a mirror image for what we're seeing with this Somali fraud and why people are so enraged about it, because they've been noticing this for so long and they were silenced if they called it out, and no more. I think that's what we're seeing right now in this moment. So I'm just going to be real with you. Forgive me, but I just find...
Dude, like I said before, we've been covering this for weeks, but, you know, we knew that billions were missing, but the fact that we have Nick Shirley on the ground presenting this information, and now we can see it with our own eyes, puts it in a different perspective. And then when you add in the media cover-up, that's where the problem begins, when the talking heads go on camera and tell you to look the other way, look over here, it's racism, whatever. Here's Nick Shirley on the Sunday show on Fox.
Responsibility to hold these.
Nick, your video's been viewed 93 million times. What do you think will be the result of this? Do you think that things will change because of bringing attention to this, or do you think it'll be much the same, swept under the rug and keep moving forward?
Yeah, there better be change. People are demanding it. The investigations have been launched just from that video alone. And so there better be change because, like I said, we work way too hard to be paying taxes. We work way too hard to be not knowing where our money's going. And at the end of the day, the people in the government, they work for us. We don't work for them. And so it's their responsibility to hold these people accountable. And so if there's not something that's happened, people are going to be very frustrated. And so if President Trump's watching this, it's time to really get down to nitty-gritty and to make a difference in this place of Minnesota that is pretty much like Somaliland right now.
Nick, your video...
This is the tip of the iceberg, folks. It's only gonna spiral. Wall Street Apes, 24 hours ago. This is why no NGO money launderers ever go to jail. Elon Musk confirms the taxpayer money politicians and bureaucrats are sending to fake NGOs are being used to purchase themselves mansions and private jets. Listen,
No, so the government can give money to a so-called nonprofit with very few controls, and then there's no auditing subsequently of that nonprofit. So there's no. So this is where with the 1.9 billion to Stacey Abrams, they then give themselves extremely lavish, like insane salaries, expense everything to the nonprofit. Buy jets and homes and all sorts of things.
Live like kings and queens.
Yes.
On the taxpayer dime.
Correct.
You mentioned...
And this is happening at scale. It's not just one or two. We're seeing this everywhere.
Now,
the government can give money to...
Elon Musk put it plainly. You're the media now. And he's right. The networks with billion-dollar budgets failed to ask a basic question. A citizen journalist did the work that they refused to do. Mike Lindell says these fraudsters have infiltrated every government welfare service available. Tom Homan reportedly has the best fraud investigator looking into Ilhan Omar personally. And that report could drop any day now. The old information order is collapsing, and no amount of spin can put it back together. So here's the real story behind the story. It's not just about stolen money. This is about who gets to control what you know. For years, legacy media decided which stories mattered and which ones disappeared. They protected the powerful and they buried the inconvenient. But something has changed. Platforms have opened up. Citizens grabbed their cameras and the gatekeepers lost their grip. 110 million people watched footage the networks refused to air. Senators launching investigations because of a man in a sweatshirt, not a newsroom. The establishment's panicking because they cannot memory hold this one. The receipts are public, the footage is everywhere, the American people are demanding answers. So I'll ask you this, do you believe legacy media deliberately ignored the Minnesota fraud story to protect political allies? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. If you want to support our independent journalism that actually does the job, check out our merch shop, linked in the description.
The system controls information. Information control is power. I want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now.